So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Love Juice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy if a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the Track Extra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And welcome to another episode of On the Track Extra. As regular viewers will know, every Wednesday evening at about 5 and every Saturday afternoon at 3, I bring you a mélange, if I may use the European terminology, the mélange of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. You want to know what surreality is? Well, just hang on a second. I'll tell you in a moment. But before we get on to the show proper, I want to make a few what I think could be called parish announcements. Now, today's episode of On the Track Extra is the last one to come out at 5. Oh dear, I hear you all shouting with a weeping and a wailing and a gnashing of teeth. How are we going to survive? Simple, you're just going to have to wait another hour and a half, because as of next week it's going to be coming out at 6:30, because 6:30 is a time when all of you fine people in Britain are either on your way home so you can watch it on your phones, or have got home and are sitting down with a cup of tea to enjoy your evening, and your evening can start with an episode of On the Track. This was Louis' idea, so if you don't like it, blame Computer Boy.
Don't call me Computer Boy!
Well, the CFZ is a family, as I have always said. And in families you have sad times, and you have happy times, and you have lovely times, and you have deaths, but you also have marriages and you have births. And on behalf of the CFZ family, I want to welcome its newest member. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to meet young Master Huxley Owen. He's Miss Maxine's new grandson, and he looks a complete poppet. And with a name like Huxley Owen, he really, truly cannot help but be a cryptozoologist, and within a decade or so he'll probably be running the show. Last week, when I was not very well in bed, I got an awful lot of messages all coming in within a few minutes of each other, and they were all to tell me that somebody had claimed to have filmed crocodiles swimming off the Yorkshire coast. This was alleged to have taken place near Filey, and of course everybody knows the Filey Brig was the location of quite a major sea monster sighting. The first story dates from 1794, when the village of Filey was apparently being terrorised by a dragon, which does actually seem quite late into the age of reason for a dragon to be terrorising a Yorkshire village, but as they say up in Yorkshire, is now as queer as dragons. And this dragon finally met its nemesis when a local lady called Mrs. Bumfit, I couldn't make this up, you really couldn't make this up, fed the dragon large amounts of her famous sticky parkin cake. And The cake was eaten, more of the cake was eaten, and the dragon's jaws were fused shut by the sticky toffee. And so the dragon jumped into the sea, trying to free its jaws from being stuck together by cake. And as far as I know, there are two answers to this. One, that the dragon succumbed to a particularly unhealthy diet, and two, that the dragon was still trying so hard to free its jaws that it didn't notice when a whole bunch of villagers came back upon him and dispatched him in the way that villagers are always supposed to dispatch vicious creatures that have been terrorizing them without due caution. But, Richard, my dear boy, have you heard of any other dragon being defeated by cake?
No, I haven't actually, I'm afraid.
How do they usually defeat dragons?
I've heard of them using a spiked, kind of like a spiked club or a spiked ball or something.
Isn't there one of the northern stories that has the dragon being fought by a crusader who'd come home from the Crusades and had spikes all over his armour, so when the
Yes.
dragon tried to wrap himself round, the spikes did him in, basically.
I think that's what I'm thinking of, yeah. I'm not sure which part of the country that happened in, but yeah, it definitely does ring a bell.
Well, I personally would rather be tempted by cake than by a ex-crusader wearing a spiky suit of armour. But
Yes.
guess what? The stories continue. And we continue now with a story that the late great Tim Dinsdale collected, and which allegedly happened in 1934. The story, which dates from the 1st of March rather than a month later, tells the story of two sightings of a creature which is described as being very large, having enormous eyes, and possibly being amphibious, which seemed for a while to haunt the coast of Yorkshire near Filey, and it had first been seen by 4 fishermen who corroborated each other's stories, as fishermen always do, and then a while later there was a second story. I said a while later, but it was for actually only 2 weeks later, when Wilkinson Herbert, a coastguard, encountered the creature on land. He was patrolling a rocky beach, doing stuff that coastguards do. I don't actually know, even though my great-grandfather was one, I don't actually know really what they do, and don't care enough to find out, although I probably should. But he was patrolling a rocky beach when he came across a creature that reared up in front of him with a long neck and a giant head and enormous tortoise-like eyes. I would like to posit here that the fact that this was in the middle of the then concurrent spate of Loch Ness Monster sightings, which kick-started the phenomena properly in the early 1930s, could possibly have had something to do with it. Possibly Herbert encountered a walrus. We all know that walruses do turn up in British waters, and always have, more often than is generally understood to be the case. And if Wilkinson had been frightened by a walrus in the middle of the night, let's face it, that's the last thing you're expecting to find on a beach, I think that the long neck and the other monstrous aspects to the sighting can probably be explained by Herbert's mind playing tricks on him. But then again, maybe it didn't. Have a look. This is the uncut, unexpurgated footage which was taken last week when a lady and her children saw what they believed is a sea monster, or rather they saw what they believed to be 3 crocodiles.
Wow. Can't believe we sprayed them out now.
Well, I can see why she thought they looked like crocodiles, but for the moment, let's forget the fact that crocodiles would not be able to live in a British climate at sea, except in an exceptionally hot summer. Yes, golly, we had an exceptionally hot summer, but I still don't think they're crocodiles. Dr. Dan Holsworth, who's been a friend of the CFZ and the show for a long time, suggested that they were probably rocks, and he went to his Ordnance Survey map and found that a rock formation called the Old Horse Rocks, possibly because they looked like a living animal sticking out of the sea, I don't know, is in the approximate area that the lady who took the footage would have been when she saw whatever it was. I tend to think that the creature is probably Dan Holdsworth's Old Horse Rocks. But I'm very lucky because this week I have staying with me my old friend Richard Muirhead, who I'm sure you remember I've known for 52 years now, ever since I was 11 and he was 6, and we've been friends ever since. He's staying with me for the week, so I'm going to ask him what he thinks of this supposed Yorkshire crocodile sighting. So, Richard, what do you think of this supposed sighting of crocodiles off the coast of Yorkshire?
I'm highly sceptical. I've only had a quick look at the actual video and photo, and it looks just like a rock or a lump of tree trunk, or just something that's definitely not a crocodile. It's the wrong shape.
And I don't actually think there is even much to suppose that the things are moving. I think it's an optical illusion because the waves are breaking on whatever it is, and there's a current going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, so the chances of it being a crocodile are extremely slim. If it was any animal, it could be a seal or something like that, but I don't think it's a crocodile.
It has been suggested that it's a basking shark.
Yeah, could be.
But then again, it hasn't got a dorsal fin sticking up.
Yeah. Could just be a floating mass of vegetation.
No, I think, to be quite honest, I'm pretty certain that Dan Holdsworth's right and it's a rock.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, and in the light of all the walrus sightings that there have been in the last 6-8 months, I think it's something that one should keep an eye open for strange things on the Yorkshire coast.
Yeah.
But I just truly don't think this is one of them.
There is a case from the late 18th century up near where now is Hartlepool of a supposed crocodile or crocodilian type animal. That's the only case I can think of a crocodile off the northeast coast of England.
But you and Bob Skinner are actually working on a book on British crocodile sightings, aren't
We
you?
are, yes. We've got cases going back hundreds of years, and we think that the Crusaders might have brought crocodiles from Palestine. We think some dragon stories, early dragon stories, might have been these supposed crocodiles brought back from the Middle East by Crusaders. So yeah, we are collecting a lot of stories.
I really don't know, but I do know that there's a wide range of animals kept in, for example, the Royal Menagerie.
Yeah.
Did they ever have crocodiles?
Yes, I think there were a few cases.
Because I know they kept something in the moat. I know at one time they had
Yeah.
polar bears in the moat.
Yeah.
That's at the Tower of London. But I don't know if they ever did crocodiles.
There are quite a few stories over the years of crocodiles in the River Thames. These would have escaped from private collections or menageries, or even the Tower of London. It's not unheard of for there to be crocodiles or alligators in the Thames.
There is a book about the history of the Royal Menagerie,
Yeah.
which is on my list of books I want to buy, and I just haven't got around to it yet.
Sure.
But I think I'm probably going to put it on my Christmas list, in fact,
Yeah.
because it's something otherwise I'll just never get round to buying.
Yeah.
So, I'm afraid I still think that it might be a basking shark, it might be a walrus, it might be a seal, it might be a porpoise,
Yeah.
but it's almost certainly rocks. And I'm afraid with that, I'll leave you until next time. So, I'll be back on Saturday, and if you're there to see me, I'll be seeing you.
Seeing you.